Well, hey, folks, it's your old pal King Waspinator. Welcome back to Total Party Skills. I would like to be able to do a review of Star Trek's Captain's Log and tell you that as a resource just for the regular game, it's actually really excellent. It greatly streamlines a lot of the chaff out of the Modiphius rule system. It takes momentum and threat and makes them a lot more simplified and easier to manage. It cuts talents out of character creation while otherwise leaving that intact. And a lot of the talents, they sound cool in name, but the actual mechanics that go with those mechanics are awkward, hard to understand, or are very rare in terms of when the circumstances arise when you can actually use the talents. So ejecting them from the character creation is cool. I don't know about the solo play part of it. I've never been inclined to playing solo games. And the way it's structured from what I read, it kind of... My initial impression, I think, still holds as it being a fanfic generator. However, like a lot of the encounter tables and stuff in here are useful for game masters. And unfortunately, though, it mentions pronouns, so I know that there's a chunk of the viewing audience that's going to be all like, "Pronouns? My God! I got home from a long day, hard working at the Cheeto factory, and I just want to sit down and enjoy a role-playing game based off the famous Star Trek intellectual property franchise, and they're hitting me with wanting my player character to choose their pronouns. It's so boring! Ah!" And so I guess that's just kind of a non-starter, isn't it? So I will talk a little bit, though, about my the game loop that I came up with for when I've run Star Trek adventures in the past and might again in the future. The key is to keep your mission statements simple. You have your characters, you have their ship, get that all set up. Maybe have them make a few support crew characters to go ahead and have so to fill in any other blanks of, major command roles on the ship that you need and all that kind of stuff. Make the captain as the game master's character, so to say, but try to give them a personality where they're as hands-off, Picard-esque as they can be so that the players are doing the majority of the mission stuff and not just relying on the captain to solve everything for them. There's a variety of different, like storytelling techniques you can employ to come up with a reason why your captain is going to be like that. But for the good of the players, not feeling like you're holding their hand and just having a self-insert NPC in the game, you want to try to, dial back from that as much as possible. But you have your crew and your ship. You have your starting location. Starbase, Earth, Utopia Planitia, wherever it is you want it to be. And then their initial mission will be go to this star system and do this thing. Good example, go to the Pantera 4 system. The colonists there are holding some Sona workers hostage because the Sona were commissioned to build some weather satellites, but the weather satellites seem to be defective. They weren't built up to snuff. And so the colonial administration is desperate to make sure that they actually deliver on the product that they said that they're going to build, and so they're holding some of their people hostage. And the crew needs to go in there and negotiate some sort of resolution that keeps the colonists from killing a bunch of hostages, and also try to strong-arm the Sona into actually doing the work that they're supposed to do so that this colony is not left with a bunch of malfunctioning weather satellites. And that's it. Don't start off with a bunch of set encounters that are going to be there on the road. Go ahead and design a few encounters and bank them to the side. Those will be used for complications. As your players accrue threat, you can bank that threat to add complications. And so the way I like to do it is that I use that to then throw in, there's a malfunction on the ship in the mid-flight, and now you have to do some sort of extended engineering task to get the ship running again. Or you encounter some sort of spatial anomaly, or you encounter some sort of other ship, or, you could trigger various complications based off things in the player characters' backgrounds, their values, their life path. Have a character who had met Q as one of their events. You can have a complication be that Q shows up just to give them some shit on the way or something like that. But these are not guaranteed set encounters, and as much as you can, these encounters complications should be queued so that they relate to the incident that gave the threat. Character gains threat on a roll trying to do an engineering roll, then that would trigger a complication where, there's an engine malfunction and the ship stops in the middle of space and everyone's got to scramble to get the ship up and running again so they can keep going on to their mission and not get to their destination late. Stuff like that. I would bolt back in extended tasks to a limited degree from the original rules while using Captain Log's version of the rules for shipboard type tasks. As a ship goes along, depending on the length of time in between star systems, there should be a track of, like difficulties and successes that you want to accrue in terms of, the day-to-day maintenance of the engineering section, the day-to-day maintenance of the med bay, the day-to-day maintenance of running the helm and navigating. You can come up with other things, like if you got a first officer or a counselor character, you can have them be doing random crew evaluations and stuff like that. They don't necessarily have to role play through them strongly. It's just you want to, give them their success track and have them accumulate successes, roughly like one success per day of the trip, so to say. Now, if they are able to accrue more successes by rolling well or by using the assistance of support characters or of the ship, and they manage to bank all their successes a bit early, then that would give them free time so that those characters that have free time at the end of that travel could potentially have time to do like a holodeck adventure or something. That's another complication you can throw into the mix, is if characters get to the point that they're able to go and do something in the holodeck, have a couple of basic holodeck scenario programs thrown in there. It's an interesting way to have your Star Trek characters kind of play as a different role-playing game briefly, and you can have a complication worked into that so that you have your classic, a holodeck malfunction kind of episode Star Trek scenario. You can also use those encounter complications to make the foes that they face at their destination more buff. Add extra ships, add extra enemies, all that kind of stuff. That way, the players are themselves somewhat responsible for the severity of the challenge that they face, because it's through their bad rolls or them voluntarily asking for threats so they can get extra dice to roll and all that other kind of stuff that will lead to a harder, more challenging adventure. Try to avoid big season arcs. Try as much as you can to do a episode of the week kind of adventure style. Let them resolve their mission on said planet. Then they get new orders from Starfleet to go to another star system. Calculate how long it's going to take them to get there based on what the captain will set the warp speed at, depending on the urgency to get there, depending on what the situation is. And just, wash, rinse, repeat. Have them go through the day-to-day maintenance of whatever department their player characters are in charge of. Science characters could potentially, especially for like longer travel periods, you got to cross a couple of sectors and you're only going warp 5, so that might take a couple months. You can give them an opportunity to develop their own, scientific experiments or research programs that they can work towards. Your engineer character could try to develop some new kind of technology or invention on top of the regular day-to-day tasks of running a starship. And once again, work in some more complications, more encounters of things that could trigger off. Ones you didn't use in a previous adventure, you can hold on and still keep them in your bank of complications to add to a later one, or as they get used up, you can come up with new ones to kind of fill in the blanks so that it kind of rotates through it. And if the characters do things smoothly and they don't, roll a bunch of 20s, or they don't voluntarily take any threat on themselves so they can get more momentum dice or any of that other kind of stuff. And then when they get to the final destination of the mission and they're able to resolve it relatively easily, well, that is also a product of their own actions. You as the game master weren't taking it easy on your players. Your players set it up so that it was easy on them because they didn't overcomplicate the situation. And that's basically it. Over time, obviously, larger plots will start to emerge, especially as the characters develop their values and get more established on what their backstories are and develop their own interests, and it can evolve out from there. But in terms of like going for some sort of season structure in terms of your plots, at least try to plot yourself out like a 10-episode first season of just real basic, go to this planet, do this basic little scenario type missions, and then just allow the player's own actions to grow those into larger, more epic adventures as you go. So I guess that's about it. I might consider playtesting the solo version of the game and report on it. I don't know. As I said, that's never particularly been my bag anyway. But as just a rules system that helps streamline some of the clunkiness out of Modiphius's existing rule system, the Captain's Log is a pretty damn good resource to buy. Plus, you can get it in this attractive Star Trek Discovery themed cover. So that's about it. Until next time, live long and prosper. And oh, while I still have you here, if you're looking for more of a tongue-in-cheek version of the Star Trek stereotype, might I suggest We Want Soviet Men, where you can play as comrades on your comrade starship exploring the stars. It's a source book for Escape from Planet Matriarchy, the very first original Total Party System rulebook, where players take on the roles of 20th century astronauts who are shot 500 years into the future to crash land on the moon of Titan to discover the nightmare society that has evolved there, both of which can be found in the Vintage Future RPG, available now on Amazon.com in print or Drive-Thru RPG for a PDF.